Okay, any of our speakers still around? Okay. We have four presentations, so can we agree with the available speakers that we have 15 minutes each? So that will take us about an hour, and then we'll have about another 15 minutes for discussion. All right, we'll start with the first presenter, Oliver Psitley Leach. Is that correct? Thank you. Oliver is studied geography at University College of London, and he obtained his master's degree in water resources system engineering from Newcastle University in UK. He has gone on to follow a varied career in UK and overseas, ranging from head of public health department, that's very interesting, at the Freetown City Council, to public health engineer for refugees in Georgia. That's again very interesting. Olivia have worked currently working employed by GIZ in Ministry of Water and Irrigation in Jordan. And as he already told me, it looks that the title of his presentation is quite long. It is International National Service Water Basins and the Well Fields Multi-Level Water Resources Management using a single modeling tool in Jordan. So can I ask you, Olivier, please come forward with the 15 minutes.
Thank you. Right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll be giving this presentation on behalf of myself and a colleague of mine, Johannes Stork. We're both based in the Ministry of Water and Irrigation in Jordan, in the National Water Master Planning Directorate. What I want to do is give you an overview of how we've been using a modelling tool called WEEP, which is sort of the backbone of the National Water Master Plan in Jordan, and how we're able to use that at many different levels of water resources management. So what I'll do, I'll just give you a quick overview of what WEEP is and why we've chosen WEEP, and then give you a couple of examples, 2 or 3 examples of how we've been using that in the ministry at different levels, ranging from sort of the international level right through to well field and springs. So WEEP. WEEP stands for Water Evaluation and Planning. It's a modelling tool that's been developed by SEI, which is the Stockholm Environmental Institute. And basically it's a tool to represent water balance. So you put in a number of supplies, that's the climate, hydrological data, and various supply sources such as the groundwater, surface water, desalination, whatever it might be, and allocate a number of demands such as, so for example, in our models we have a domestic demand, an industrial demand, an agricultural demand, and a touristic demand. And the idea behind the WEEP model is that it will balance and will optimize water allocation based on your demand priorities and your supply preferences. So you can choose whether to supply a particular demand from one source or another, or certainly first from one source, and then if there's anything else that needs supplying, from the second source. And likewise, you can choose priorities over your demand. So do you prefer to supply agriculture or domestic supply? But I think the key thing with WEEP is that it is only a tool, and it's only one tool in the decision-making process. So it doesn't take into, and so the decision-maker needs to use this with many other decision-making tools or other decisions. So there might be socio-political issues that need to be taken into consideration. So WEEP is just one in your many in your toolbox of many tools. Why did we choose WEEP? Because obviously there's many dozens of water modelling and water allocation models out there that are available. We chose to introduce WEEP basically because, well, for one reason, because we can use it at so many different levels, It is fairly simple to use. Much of the data that's available to the ministry doesn't have to be manipulated too much to enter it into WEAP. We've trained up a number of people within the ministry who can use it, and in the Water Authority and in the Jordan Valley Authority. And it's used widely across the world, which means we've got a lot of support for using it. We can call on forums, there's lots of training available. And to the ministry, it doesn't cost us anything, so it's a very low-cost tool. Then if we're wanting to look at issues in more depth, so for example, groundwater, we can link to other models like ModFlow. It links to other models I've listed there, MABIA, MIWAS, Qual2K, so that's MABIA looks at crop water requirements, MIWAS looks at economic aspects, and as the name suggests, Qual2K looking at quality. So how have we used WEAP in the National Water Master Plan? Basically, we've got 13 models that cover the surface water, the main surface water basins in Jordan. And these are then linked together using scripts to give us a countrywide model. So at this level, we can provide data at surface water basin level or at national level. And then within each individual surface water basins, you can see there's four governorates that cross or are part of the ASRAC. This is one of the surface water basins, ASRAC. 4 governorates fall within that basin. So we can also aggregate data from the different basins to give us data by governorate level, which is often the water management level within Jordan. So looking at the actual model then itself, what we do is we start off with the boundaries, then we'll add a number of supplies, as I say, so the green squares represent groundwater sources, and the diamond on the outside represents then groundwater coming in from Syria. Then we'll add a number of demands, so as I said, domestic, industrial demands and so on, and link those together to create a model of one surface water basin. The dots outside the boundary represent water that's transferred to another surface water basin, so for example, drinking water to Oman, and we can take those into consideration when we're aggregating data up together. What I've got now is 2 or 3 examples of how we've used this, as I say, at different levels, and I'll just rattle through those for you. I'll start at the top level, so international, transboundary. The model on the right-hand side isn't one that wasn't created within Jordan. It's a international project with an organization called ACWUA, which is looking at water resources in the Jordan Valley. So that's involving Palestine, Israel, and Jordan. And they were looking at climate change in that area. And they ran a number of climate change models looking at precipitation, evaporation, runoff, and so on. And so this is the sort of typical results that you might be getting from one of these models, looking at with climate change, without climate change. This is the Yarmouk River inflow. So obviously that affects what happens in Jordan. The Yarmouk River is a river that borders between Syria and Jordan. We've taken those results from their modeling exercises. So I say Yarmouk River and then Lake Tiberias. And we've put their outputs into our model. So this, the model, the element that we were looking at was the Jordan Valley model that's created by the ministry. And we've used those as inputs to our model. What we're also looking at now is taking some of their climate change data for the actual rainfall, that we could look at putting that into the Jordan Valley model and other models. So the key is there, we've been able to take data from another wheat model and put it into ours because of the similarities. If we go down to sort of national level here, here's just a diagram of the the new Disi water conveyance project, it's called. So it's going to be transferring fossil groundwater from the south of the country to the north, where the main demand is, so Amman, Zaka, and a town in the north, Irbid. Hopefully supplying about 100 million cubic meters by 2014. And what we've done is had a look at what impact does that have on the water resources in and around Amman. On the graph here, you can see that in, you see where it dips. There's no pointer, is there? I suppose. That doesn't matter. But 2014, this represents water that is pumped from Azraq, which is to the east of Oman. As we heard this morning, water resources in Azraq, there's a lot of over pumping of groundwater resources. So what we've been able to show is that if we look at the period between, So if you look at the period between 2014, 2020, you can see the green bars, which is the water coming from Azraq. We can say that we don't need to pump as much water from Azraq. As I say, this is a tool, so what we can tell the decision makers is, okay, DISI has provided enough water. We can think of something else to do with that groundwater from Azraq. Do we leave it in Azraq, let the groundwater recharge, or do we send that water somewhere else? As I say, we've got these models that will link the water from Azraq to other basins as well. As we're short of time, I'll skip one, and I'll go straight to something at a much smaller level. What we have here is this blue circle represents a transmission line from some springs over to a demand site. In order to create this is the Amman Zarqa basin, which is obviously around the capital city. In order to make the model itself quite simple, we've had to aggregate a number of resources and demands. But this has been, in a project, we've disaggregated this link here. And we're looking at the energy efficiency, or the project actually was through Water Authority Jordan and with Dorsch, looking at energy efficiency of pumps and so on, and GIZ. And we were looking at the water efficiency of pumps and how is that going to affect CO2 emissions and indeed costs. So we've run each individual spring using the same wheat model though. Again, you get a number of results depending what happens, and we can then amalgamate those together and feed them back into our basin-wide model. What we can then do is, talking about the priorities, we can say that the link, the energy efficient link, if you like, has a supply preference of 1, so that as much water as possible is pumped from this source or these sources, and any other sources get a lower supply preference. So what does that? So then we can work out then what sort of impact does that have on the overall cost of supplying this demand site, these Balka cities. We could then maybe upscale that even further, is the next thing we're going to be looking at, and looking at that, what's going to happen if you introduce energy efficient pumps across the whole of the basin. So just to summarize really, I think the key things that we need to bear in mind is that, as I said, WEEP is only one tool in water resources management, albeit for us within the ministry a very important tool, but it needs to be used in conjunction with, as I say, other factors, other issues such as social issues, economic issues, political issues. There's lots of other things that influence those decisions. So WEEP doesn't provide the answer, it's just a tool. As I said, it's very easy to use. We've used it. We've got a number of staff who are easily are able to use this tool with confidence. As I said, we can use this at many different levels. So right through from the international level, right through to the sort of surface, the well field spring level. So it's almost the micro level. And perhaps the most important thing for us is that it's got common inputs from our databases, but it's also, we can use those inputs from other projects that are using the same model in the region, which we can use also those inputs from different parts of the ministry. So there's the Water Authority, there's the Jordan Valley Authorities, the ministry, are all using the same tool, So any outputs from their modelling that they might be doing alongside our work within the Ministry and the National Water Master Planning Department Directorate, they can be compared very easily. So this idea of common inputs and outputs is very important to ensure that we can work across directorates within the Ministry and indeed across a number of projects that are actually outside of the Ministry. And if anyone's interested in looking at the WEEP model and what we've done recently, I've got the models all with me, so I can show you in much more detail outside of these sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oliver, for keeping the time. I think this is a very interesting presentation, and now I understand why you have a long title for the presentation, because you are looking not only at the groundwater modeling, but also the interaction with the surface water. However, I just wanted maybe to comment to let you know that in Oman, we have tried a similar thing using an expert system, in which you are not only modeling the groundwater surface water interactions, but you also integrate the social and the financial, socio-economic factor within the model. Thank you very much for that. Okay, we'll go for our next presentation with the Dr. Jarrah on the hydropolitic analysis of the Dead Red Canal as a strategically water source for Jordan. Dr. Al-Jarrah is a PhD holder in water resource development and environment from Manchester, UK in 2005. He is involved in, he got an MA in Environmental and Development, Environmental Impact Assessment, again from Manchester, that's in 2000, and his BSc in Engineering from Baghdad, Iraq in 1993. Dr. Jarrah has quite plenty of experience in water-related topics, and I have a list of all his association with the professional committees and membership. So I will invite Dr. Jarrah, please come in, and the floor is yours.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, everybody. My presentation will be about a strategical project that Jordan should or might or must, we don't know, go for it in the future as a strategical option for Jordan to have a new non-conventional source of water. This is the content of my presentation. I will talk about Jordan in a very brief problem background. It's the Dead Sea, proposed solutions, transboundary analysis of the new project, legal problems, and the conclusion. Jordan is located in the Middle East, as everybody knows, and it's surrounded by Palestine, Israel, Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. We are considered as a Mediterranean part of the world. Our rainfall rates varies from 600 to 800 in the northwestern parts of Jordan, and it's about less than 100 millimeter per year in the southern and the eastern part of Jordan. So we are considered one of the third or the 10 poorest countries in the world regarding share per capita. Jordan is now considered the third, with 140 cubic meter per year per capita. But if you look to the other countries, Kuwait and United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, they are very rich in energy, but Jordan, we don't have enough sources of energy. We don't have oil, so the problem is maximized. The annual per capita is less than 140 cubic meter per year, and we don't know, maybe in 2025 will be about 90 cubic meter per year. So it's a severe problem, and the government should take some mitigations measures to avoid such disaster. Water availability, and if you see, the main consumption is by agriculture. The second one is the domestic and municipal demand. The population now is about 6.5 million, but in Jordan we have many migrants from other countries like Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, and these migrants put more load on our natural resources, especially water. Jordan, as a geography or a topography of Jordan, we have the lowest point in the earth, which is the Dead Sea. It's about 418 meters below the sea level, and we have the highest level from 1200 to 1600 in the western part of Jordan. This is a cross-sectional of the Jordan. As you see in the left side of the slide, it's Al Ghor, or the Jordan Valley, and the Dead Sea is located there, which is about 400 meters below the sea level, and the uplands, which is more than 1200 meters above sea level. The Dead Sea. Dead Sea is a closed lake, and it's a historical place for Jordan, Palestine. The sea level of the Dead Sea has been decreased every year about 90 to 1 meter, 90 centimeters to 1 meter. In 2006, it was about 418 meters below the sea level. In 1993, it was about 390 meters below the sea level. So we have about 28 meters of decrease. Jordan, Israel, Palestine, they are capturing all the water comes to the Dead Sea by building dams to use it for fresh water for domestic use. Such a problem make a huge environmental degradation, and one of the main problems there is the sinkholes. As you see in the picture, sinkholes has been discovered every day, and especially in the southern part of Jordan, if you are walking in your farm and suddenly you have a sinkhole, it's very dangerous and many accidents happen there. Freshwater springs also has been dried due to the decrease of the level of the sea. Impact on tourism. Jordan, the Dead Sea, is one of the most important lakes in the world, as its salinity is 10-fold of any normal sea. So it has an tourism and health tourism, let's say, for Jordan, and it's a good source of income for our GDP. Cultural heritage. Dead Sea also is mentioned in the holy books, and there is an important issue with the Dead Sea. It's the industries. Potash industry is one of the main pillars of Jordan industry, and we rely on this one industry as an important economical income for Jordan. There's a proposed solution to solve the problem. One of them to have a canal from the Red Sea to the Dead Sea, or to have a canal from the Mediterranean Sea to the Dead Sea, or just rehabilitate the Jordan River. And environmentalists are looking for such solution, as it is environmentally friendly and can rehabilitate or restore the original level of the Dead Sea. But studies has been conducted since the 19th century with many options. The most important option in the past, they wanted this option just to generate power from the hydroelectric we have, because the main level of the Red Sea is about 0, and we have the Dead Sea 400 below, so we have a hydroelectric of about 400 and above meter. This was the main objective of the canal in the past, but now the options is to restore the Dead Sea by pumping about 21 billion cubic meter to restore it to the level when was it on the 1930s. Besides that, we can generate power and we have desalination plants there, so we can have an extra source of fresh water, which is about 850 million cubic meter per year. This amount of water will be shared between Jordan, Israel, and Palestine. Jordan's share is about 560 million cubic meter per year. The project feasibility study and environmental impact and social impact assessment has started since 2008. I think now it's in the final stages of final reporting. Maybe officials from the Ministry of Water and Irrigation in Jordan with us here can give us more details about the last stage of this one. But I will go for these options. As you see in the slide, we have the Mediterranean. The Red Sea is in the southern part of in the bottom. We have the Dead Sea, and these are the three options that proposed. The Red Dead, as I mentioned, have a hydraulic head of about 400 below the sea level. So the proposed project at the moment is to withdraw water from the Red Sea to the Dead Sea by pumping water to the elevation of 120 meters above the sea level, and then we will have a hydraulic head about 520 meter, so we can get benefit of such power to generate electricity and to have a desalination plants before the saline water reach the Dead Sea. The transponder analysis has been conducted with a brainstorming session workshop at my university. We reviewed the existing agreements about the Dead Sea and the Red Sea. We have a few, actually, the Jeddah Convention and others. But the problem here, as Jordan has a peace agreement with Israel, it's okay, and Egypt also. But the problem that Saudi Arabia, Syria, Lebanon, they don't have any agreement with Israel. So these riparians, especially Syria and Lebanon, will not be involved on the political analysis or the transboundary agreements regarding the Dead Sea. The methodology that has been used to analyze the hydropolitics of the Dead Red project rely on 4 pillars of power. It's the geography, material, bargaining power, and additional power. I will not go through this, but if you need more information about it, I can do it after the session. The analysis that we have compared Jordan, Israel, and Palestine regarding these 4 pillars, and the Red Dead project give us the result on the result on the bottom of the page. The Red Dead is an strategical option for Jordan, as the geography and the bargaining power and the material power is in the favor of Jordan. So we will go for it as a Jordanian. I don't know if the government will agree or not. The Mid-Dead project give the favor to Israel because geography is the most important thing and they can control the whole project, and this is not a strategical option for other riparians. Jordan River rehabilitation, mainly Jordan and Israel have the same power over it, but Palestine not too much because they don't control the geography regarding such alternative. Legal problems regarding the project, Palestinian concerns about the reallocating of surface and groundwater by Israel. The share of Palestinian of the Red Dead project is about 100 million cubic meter, so they are afraid if they have such amount of water, Israel will not give them their rights in other surface or groundwater resources in the West Bank. No participation of upper riparians, Lebanon and Syria, as required by international practice. Original World Bank tours draft of the feasibility study accepted by Jordan and Palestinians, but Israel not. Why? Because they don't want to mention that BA as a state. Just one minute. Conclusion, Reddit is a strategical option for Jordan, and there is a talk about that. If Israel and Palestine or the three ribarians do not have enough fund to go for it, or because it needs about more than $10 billion dollars, so the fund should come from the donors like World Bank, and in case if the fund is not available, Jordan is looking to have a mini project of the Reddit just to have a new source of drinking water. The project will give a new water supplies of about 850 million cubic meter per year. Jordan shares about 560. Environmental benefits, restoration of Dead Sea, economic benefits, tourism, potash and salt industries. No agreement regarding fund problems, obese dividend. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Doctor, for this very interesting presentation. Before we go for the third presentation, can I ask if Tawfiq Muhammad from Iraq, is he here? Tawfiq Muhammad. Okay, so let's go for our third presentation. Maybe we'll have some more time because Tawfiq is not here. He's the fourth presenter. Then we will have more time for the discussion and question. Can I just introduce now Dr. Ghazi Abu Rumman. He's a research scientist, ICT International, Australia. His research interest is in salinity management, water balance, integrated water resource management. And Dr. Ghazi is going to talk to us today about the using saline groundwater in the landscaping to save domestic water sources. Dr. Ghazi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everybody. Please, the translator, if you find my accent is too fast, then just point to me, then I will slow down. You've got enough time, so no worries. The talk today will be about the use of saline groundwater in the landscape to save the domestic water sources. And this research was conducted in Australia, the city of Perth, which is a Mediterranean-type climate city. So it is very relevant to those countries in the Middle East. I will start with a background and then the experimental design, and will follow on the soil salinity to assess that approach. And then we'll look at the water table level changes of the after the study and before. And then we'll study the plant responses, and then we'll finish with a summary. So what has happened in Australia when the European first came, the settlers, I mean, came to Australia, they wanted to grow their cash crops for food. So they cut off all the forest trees in their lands to grow these crops. The forest trees, they do have a deep root system whereby it used to maintain let us say, the hydrological balance, if you like. And then after cutting that and replace them with a shallow root crops, the increase started to happen in the groundwater. And Australia, as you all know, it's an island and there's a seawater intrusion. So over time and with the extraction of the groundwater, the quality of the groundwater became saline with a salinity of up to 1/4 of seawater level, in particular in the study area where I had this research done. So having or using the saline water will save some of the freshwater resources for the domestic use. I should say here that in that particular area, the groundwater level was somewhere around 2 meters deep from the soil surface, and that causes a real threat to the infrastructure, to the roads, buildings, and the sustainability of the agricultural system. So in those areas, what they have been doing is putting holes or bores and pumping the saline water to the salt lakes nearby. And in that particular town, they have been pumping the water out for 5 kilometers away from the town just to dispose the saline water to the salt lake. And that's not going to sustain for a long time. And as I said, the salinity was 1/4 of seawater level, which is somewhere around 13.5 decisiemens per meter. So the research was targeting how we can put that low quality water into use and having that system go sustainable over time. To give you an idea how the salinity was a real issue in Australia, in fact, in Western Australia itself, they had 440,000 hectares of salt-affected lands, and that was in 1990, and the number kept growing as we go. In Australia overall, they have every hour a land which became saline, i.e. not able to be used for, not feasible to be grown, and that area is equal to a sport field every day. So then overall, the world, there are actually 800 million hectares of salt-affected lands. And that's just because leaving the groundwater to raise more and more. When the water is evaporated, then salt accumulate on the topsoil, and that turns the soil to non-usable, if you like. So that also tells us we need to do something for that particular case. Well, the objective of the study was to understand the physiology of the plants and ecosystem where the saline water exists, and also to assess the performance of the plants where we are using the saline water to irrigate them. So we had two major components, soil and plants. Those are highly affected by the salts. And we had a hypothesis of some plants, those grow, they call them halophytes or salt-loving plants. They actually grow on the salt lakes, and they can tolerate very high level of salt, either in the irrigation water or in the soil. So they do have a potential to be grown. And as I said, these are salt-loving plants.